Vaya Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 16, Praise of King Prithu by the Professional Reciters. Text number 5 onwards. Eisha vai lokapalana vibharte kastano tano kale kale yatha bhagam lokyor ubhyor hitam. This king alone in his own body will be able in due course of time to maintain all living entities and keep them in a pleasant condition by manifesting himself as different demigods to perform various departmental activities. Thus he will maintain the upper planetary system by inducing the populace to perform Vedic sacrifices. In due course of time he will also maintain this earthly planet by discharging proper rainfall. So Maharaj Prithu is being praised by Sud, Magda, and Vidagda for whatever he is going to do in due course of time. The demigods in charge of the various departmental activities that maintain this world are but assistants to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When an incarnation of Godhead descends on this planet, demigods like the sun god, moon god, or the king of heaven, Indra, all join him. Consequently, the incarnation of Godhead is able to act for the departmental demigods to keep the planetary system in order. The protection of the earthly planet is dependent on the proper rainfall, and as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures, sacrifices are performed to please those demigods who are in charge of rainfall. All living bodies subsist on food grains which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. So it was said that Maharaj Prithu, he'll be able to maintain all living entities and keep them in a pleasant condition by manifesting himself as different demigods. So that's another wonderful activity that he did that we'll study later on. And Prabhupada is talking about different demigods. They are different departmental heads of different departments of the planetary system. But if they are pleased, they can provide anything for the living entities to subsist properly. Thus, the proper execution of yajna sacrifice is required. As indicated herein, King Prithu alone would induce all the citizens to engage in such sacrificial activities so that there would not be scarcity or distress. In Kali Yuga, however, in the so-called secular state, the executive branch of government is in the charge of so-called kings and presidents who are all fools and rascals, ignorant of the intricacies of nature's causes and ignorant of the principles of sacrifice. Such rascals simply make various plans which always fail, and the people subsequently suffer disturbances. To counteract this situation, the Shastras advise Harer Nam, Harer Nam Ev Kevalam, Kalo Nastev, 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 Gatiranyata. Thus, in order to counteract this unfortunate situation in government, the general populace is advised to chant the Mahamantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, means to please the demigods. Of course, our main purpose is to please Krishna. But when Krishna is pleased, demigod definitely will be pleased. They are part and parcel of that universal form of Krishna. But in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says, rains are produced by performance of yajna, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. So not just for the rains, the yajna can be performed for any other material problems. We perform yajna, devotees perform not for material problem, not for pleasing Krishna. And the yajna prescribed in this day and age is chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But if we are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra properly, at least the devotees all over the world, we are chanting, and if we are chanting properly, Krishna or the demigods who are in charge of this coronavirus, demigods who are in charge of, like Mataji was talking about, fire in California these days going on, and there is a hurricane in Houston area. All this can be subsided. The demigods are in charge of different departments of the material universe. All it means is we are not doing the yajna properly. That's all. Devotees must be doing, but all people, general populace, and yajna, it says yajna is born of prescribed duties. Prescribed duties means whatever the duties of Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Grihastha, Sannyasi, Vanprastha, Brahmachari, if they are doing their duties properly, that means the demigods must be pleased if we are doing the Varnashram system properly. But since we are not, that is why all these problems. Kali Yuga is full of problems, nothing but problems, because we don't want to do our prescribed duties properly. But at least, even if the devotees only, sadhus who do this yajna, Harinam Sankirtan yajna properly, Krishna will definitely be pleased. There's no way that he cannot be pleased. And then when he is pleased, demigods will be pleased. So we have to take up this process more seriously. Vasukal upadatte kale chayam vimunchati sama sarveshu bhuteshu ratapan suryavat vibhu. This King Prithu will be as powerful as the sun god. And just as the sun god equally distributes his sunshine to everyone, King Prithu will distribute his mercy equally. Similarly, just as the sun god evaporates water for 8 months and during the rainy season returns it profusely, thus king will also exact taxes from the citizens and return these monies in times of need. The process of tax exaction is very nicely explained in this verse. Tax exaction is not meant for the sense gratification of the so-called administrative heads. Tax revenues should be distributed to the citizens in times of need, during emergencies such as famine or flood. Tax revenues should never be distributed amongst governmental servants in the form of high salaries and various other allowances. In Kali Yuga, however, the position of the citizens is very horrible because taxes are exacted in so many forms and are spent for the personal comforts of the administrators. The example of sun in this verse is very appropriate. The sun is many millions of miles away from the earth. And although the sun does not actually touch the earth, it manages to distribute clouds all over the planet by extracting water from the oceans and seas. And in due course of time, the clouds pour water on the earth during the rainy season. As an ideal king, King Prithu could execute all this business in the village and the state as expertly as the sun. So tax collection by the government is necessary because that's how they maintain the administration, they maintain the state, they maintain the facilities for the public. So tax revenues are not supposed to be just take the tax and let's divide it among ourselves and let the public go to hell. No. It was supposed to be for public's welfare, to create the facilities, and in times of need to give it back to the public. But in Kali Yuga, everything has gone a different way. And that is why earlier days people did not steal, did not hide their money, did not hide their incomes. They paid the taxes properly because they knew the government is going to take care of them. And if they don't pay taxes, then how is the government going to maintain the state? So they would not steal in the taxes. But nowadays, everybody is stealing. So that's why government has to figure out different ways of collecting taxes and just live lavishly. Example of sun is given. Sun takes water from the ocean, make it clouds, and the clouds, what do? They don't go to the sun and pour water over there. The clouds pour water back on earth when it is needed. If this cycle is not maintained, the earth cannot maintain, the crops cannot be maintained. So the sun has to take water and make the clouds. And the clouds, and look at this creation of Krishna. It's so amazing. So amazing. Now clouds, what are the clouds? Clouds are basically the droplets of water. The clouds are water evaporated from ocean and they just clinked on together, and the winds, they take them to the place where the clouds are supposed to go and release the water. So it's millions of gallons of water being transported by wind, say to Delhi, and the clouds will release the water there when it is the time, right time, when they are told to do so. So it's basically the water tank with no walls. It's just droplets of water and carried by the wind. This amazing arrangement by Krishna. Who can make this kind of arrangement? No government can make it. And this is what it said, the ideal King Prithu would execute all this business in the village and the state as expertly as a son. Titikshatiya kramam vanya uparyakram tamapi bhutanam karuna shashvat artanam kshiti vrittiman. This King Prithu will be very, very kind to all citizens. Even though a poor person may trample over the king's head by violating the rules and regulations, the king, out of his causeless mercy, will be forgetful and forgiving. As a protector of the world, he will be as tolerant as earth itself. King Prithu is herein compared to the earthly planet as far as his tolerance is concerned. Although the earth is always trampled upon by men and animals, it still gives food to them by producing grains, fruits, and vegetables. As an ideal king, Maharaj Prithu is compared to the earthly planet. For even though some citizens might violate the rules and regulations of the state, he would still be tolerant and maintain them with fruits and grains. In other words, it is a duty of the king to look after the comforts of the citizens, even at the cost of his own personal convenience. This is not the case, however, in Kali Yuga. For in Kali Yuga, the kings and heads of state enjoy life at the cost of taxes exacted from the citizens. Such unfair taxation makes the people dishonest, and the people try to hide their income in so many ways. Eventually, the state will not be able to collect taxes and consequently will not be able to meet its huge military and administrative expenses. Everything will collapse and there will be chaos and disturbance all over the state. So the king is compared to earthly planet as far as tolerance is concerned. So earth is very tolerant of all of us for not doing our duties properly and still being maintained by Mother Earth. So just like Mother is very tolerant, even the kids are very naughty. And similarly, Mother Earth is very tolerant. She still gives us grains, fruits, vegetables, and everything that we need. Do we think that by my working, my making money, my spending money, I'm getting all this? No. Earth can stop producing, and we will see that Earth stops producing even in the reign of Maharaj Prithu when he took over. Because the populace was so sinful, and the king himself, King Vena, the previous king, was sinful. So, but still, she's so tolerant of all our mischiefs. And that's how King Prithu, and that's what Prabhupada said, the king, ideal king is supposed to be tolerant. And he has to look after the comforts of the citizens, even at the cost of his own personal convenience. Deve avarshat Tyaso devo nardeva vapur hari krichri prana prajahi hesha rakshishyati anjasendra. When there is no rainfall and the citizens are in great danger due to the scarcity of water, this royal personality of Godhead will be able to supply rains exactly like the heavenly king Indra. Thus he will very easily be able to protect the citizens from drought. King Prithu is very appropriately compared to the sun and the demigod Indra. King Indra of the heavenly planets is in charge of distributing water over the earth and other planetary systems. It is indicated that King Prithu would arrange for the distribution of rainfall personally if Indra failed to discharge his duty properly. Sometimes the king of heaven, Indra, would become angry at the inhabitants of the earth if they did not offer sacrifices to appease him. King Prithu, however, being an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, did not depend on the mercy of the heavenly king. It is foretold herein that if there would be a scarcity of rain, King Prithu would manage to counteract the deficiency by virtue of his godly powers. Such powers were also exhibited by Lord Krishna when he was present in Vrindavan. Indeed, when Indra poured incessant water on Vrindavan for 7 days, the inhabitants were protected by Krishna, who raised Govardhan Hill over his heads as a great umbrella. Thus, Lord Krishna is also known as Govardhan Dhari. So, just like King Indra produces rain for the subsistence of citizens, so Maharaj Prithu, he will also do the same. Means that's what Prabhupada says. It is indicated King Prithu would arrange for the distribution of rainfall personally if Indra failed to discharge his duty properly. Because he is the Shaktavesh avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nothing is impossible for Supreme Lord. He's not dependent upon Indra or Chandra or Varuna or Surya to do their duties. But because they are in charge of different departments, he still allows them, he still makes them do their duty properly, but he's not dependent upon them. Similarly, King Prithu will show by his prowess what he is. Apyayatsya yaso lokam vadanamrit murtina sanuragavalokena Vishadasmita Charuna. This king, Prithu Maharaj, by virtue of his affectionate glances and beautiful moon-like face, which is always smiling with great affection for the citizens, will enhance everyone's peaceful life. So that's why he is considered Adi Raj, or the original king, or ideal king. अव्यक्त वर्तमेश निगूढ़ कार्यो गंभीर वेद उपगुप्त वित्त अनंतम महात्म्य गुणैक धामा पृथु प्रचेता इव समृतात्मा. The reciters continued, no one will be able to understand the policies the king will follow. His activities will also be very confidential, and it will not be possible for anyone to know how he will make every activity successful. His treasury will always remain unknown to everyone. He will be the reservoir of unlimited glories and good qualities, and his position will be maintained and covered just as Varuna, the deity of the seas, is covered all around by water. There is a predominating deity for all the material elements, and Varuna or Pracheta is a predominating deity of the seas and the oceans. From outward appearances, the seas and oceans are devoid of life, but a person acquainted with the sea knows that within the water exists many varieties of life. The king of that underwater kingdom is Varuna. Just as no one can understand what is going on beneath the sea, no one could understand what policy King Prithu was following to make everything successful. Indeed, King Prithu's path of diplomacy was very grave. His success was made possible because he was a reservoir of unlimited glorified qualities. So just like underwater, there are so many varieties of life. Nobody can see, nobody can understand. Only those who have the knowledge they can. Similarly, King Prithu will have so much of treasury, nobody will know, so much of good qualities, unlimited glories, and this is how he will rule. The word Upagupta Vitta is very significant in this verse. It indicates that no one would know the extent of the riches of King Prithu, would confidentially keep. The idea is that not only the king, but everyone should keep his hard-earned money confidentially and secretly, so that in due course of time the money can be spent for good, practical purposes. In Kali Yuga, however, the king or government has no well-protected treasury, and the only means of circulation is currency notes made of paper. But now it's not even paper, everybody is going plastic. And by going plastic, we cannot hide our money. Everything is in the bank account, and we just see the figures going up or down, that's all. We don't see the real money. At least in India, we still see some money circulation, hard currency. In America, you hardly see any hard currency. Thus, in times of distress, the government artificially inflates the currency by simply printing papers, and this artificially raises the price of commodities, and the general condition of the citizens becomes very precarious. Thus, keeping one's money very secretly is an old practice, for we find this practice present even during the reign of Maharaj Prithu. Just as the king has a right to keep his treasury confidential and secret, the people should also keep their individual earnings secret. There is no fault in such dealings. The main point is that everyone should be trained in the system of Varnashram Dharma so that the money is spent only for good causes and nothing else. So everybody needs some money for the emergency purposes. And that's what Prabhupada says. So some money should be kept secret, confidential by the grihastha, so who are earning money and working hard, and they should be spent for good practical purposes. Of course, as devotees, we don't have any bad habits that we're going to just waste our money. But for emergency purposes, one should keep aside some money. That's just right practice. Even Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, of course, when they were ministers, they were making so much of money. And when they retired, Rupa Goswami had so many gold coins that one full boat was filled up with those coins. But now when he retired in the sense because he wanted to give up everything and join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then he didn't need any money. But, so what he did, he gave half the money to his relatives and 1/4 to the Brahmins and Vaishnavas as a donation, and 1/4 he still kept as an emergency, for emergency. And the emergency that he used that money for was um, to use for the release of Sanatan Goswami from the prison house. So Sanatan Goswami paid that money as a bribe to the jailkeeper to get him out of there. After that, yes, neither Sanatan Goswami nor Rupa Goswami did have any money, because then they were completely dependent upon the Supreme Lord, upon Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to maintain them. So unless until we come to that level of full surrender, we should try to make some arrangements. So Sanatan Goswami also paid bribe to the jailkeeper to get out of there. So one has to be practical. One has to be little smart. That's all. I won't say one should have the cheating mentality or too shrewd or cunning about money business, because then we try to cheat others, even end up cheating devotees also, and that's not good for devotional service. But at the same time, one has to be a little smart and not just throw away all the money. As a devotee, we know Krishna will take care. We know that. But at the same time, we don't want to take service from Krishna. We want to serve him. We want to serve Srimati Radharani. We don't want to take service from them, that they should come and protect us or get us out of trouble all the time. So our job is to serve them, but and we have to have very simple faith on Krishna and Radharani. So simplicity is very good in our life, in our heart, because that makes our heart very pure, conducive for devotion service, conducive for surrender, conducive to take instructions, conducive to learn more. But at the same time, we should try as much as possible not to get cheated by anybody else. There are all kinds of people everywhere. So we are not here to cheat anybody, but at the same time, we should try not to get cheated by somebody, whether so-called devotees or none, doesn't matter. So that way we can live our life very simply and make progress. That's the whole purpose of this life, anyway. But King Prithu, because he was a king, so he had to take care of the treasury. He had to keep some money confidential, secret, not for his own enjoyment, but basically to run the administration. He had to do some things like that. That was a different story. But at the same time, we got to develop this simplicity in our nature. No cunningness, no shrewdness. A simple heart is always very dear to Krishna, because then one can surrender properly. So anyway, we'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, yesterday I was sitting on the roof of my house with my parents, and like it was night time. I think this is Shukla Paksh, so that's why the moon is, there is some light, and we can see the shadow also of us. And I was just watching one, the moon and two stars, and I told my parents, the beauty of. I mean, nobody can do this. The kind of the architecture which Lord Krishna has made. People make a lot of bungalows, very nice house, but not like Krishna. What Krishna has made is just outstanding. It's beyond imagination. And it was looking so beautiful, Prabhuji. I mean, moon was just, it looked like the moon was traveling and the two stars were just following it on one side. Because it's the Shukla Paksha, it's more light was there. Absolutely outstanding it was. The entire environment was. And like today in the class, you mentioned that what Krishna makes, the arrangements and the environment which he has made, nobody can make it.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no way. And just 2-3 days later, it will be Purnima, and then you can see the full moon. It'll be so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a wonderful and safe day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhu.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Jai Shri Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji.